G'day guys and gal. When you think of the most powerful character in Warhammer 40k, who comes to mind? Is it the Primarchs, the Emperor, Khorne? What if I told you that all these characters were just spittles of cum compared to the true overlord of the setting, an entity who has led the most powerful faction the universe has ever seen during a time where Emperor tier psychers were commonplace, and Krorks, 12-meter tall armored juggernauts, were the frontline troops. 12 meters is extremely tall. It's about 5 times taller than a Space Marine or 3 times taller than a Primarch. This entity, this god-slaying being, was Szarekh, the Silent King, Lord of the Necrons. Dude who has clapped gods of every race for breakfast. A man who uses a shard of his own god as a battery for his mobility scooter purely because he can't be stuffed walking. A guy that is probably the galaxy's only hope at surviving the Tyranid onslaught. Speaking of Krorks and the Silent King, before we get started, I'm so excited to finally unveil the newest major minis. Hold on to something, because first we have the King Orc, or Kork for short. Before you're like, Majorkill, we like heroic scale miniatures, not busts. As a King Orc is 12 meters tall, this is heroic scale. This is exactly the size of a King Orc at 1/64th scale, according to Battlemace 40 million lore. Comes with awesome shit. Blade arm, gun arm, spiky grenade, and a massive custom blade. The catch is that because limited edition items are dope and this guy is very difficult to 3D print, like one of our printers exploded halfway through printing one of these, there will only be 100 of these guys in existence. So if you want one as like a proxy Gargant or Mega Gargant, or want to be the first person in the world to make a lore accurate War in Heaven diorama, or you just want to own the most badass miniature ever created, then link is below. International shipping on the King Orcs is free. But wait, there's more. As well as the King Orc, I'm also releasing Setron, the Undying, bringing back a fan favorite into the futuristic setting of Battlemace 40 million. Makes a great overlord or, Silent King proxy. It's a stunning model, very detailed, and will blow the socks off anyone you wield him against. I actually had him put together and ready for photos in my lightbox, but Leroy got excited and smacked him with his tail at 500 miles an hour, so Setron got low-key obliterated, and he needs his reanimation protocols to kick in before he's ready for photos. As the $10,000 painting competition is just getting started, I'm so excited to see what you guys and gals do with these 2 new models. You've still got 3 months to buy a major mini, paint it, and send me a photo, and you could win thousands of dollars. So bloody hyped for these 2, we've been working on them for ages. Today we'll go over the lore of the Silent King, what he did during the War in Heaven, the impact he has had on the setting, and what he was up to for 60 million years, as well as the exciting shit he's currently up to at the moment. Let's get into it. I've already made a War in Heaven video, so I'm not going to jerk off that dead horse twice, if that's how the saying goes. But long story short, an ancient godlike race of super psycho frog people began seeding the galaxy with life. They encountered a race of salty little sausage people who didn't know how to make sunscreen, hence we're getting turbo-raped by cancer from their sun. You would have thought they would have evolved beyond that or figured out a solution by now, but that's neither here nor there. The salty sausages asked the god frogs to make them sunscreen, and the god frogs told them to suck their amphibious scrotums. The salty sausages got salty and declared war on the frog gods. This war was less about trying to find the secrets of sunscreen, and more so the Silent King, yes he was the lord of the sausages at this time, giving his people a common enemy to unite against. See, his salty sausage empire was always on the brink of civil war, because everyone was salty all the time, so he made a desperate move to prevent its collapse. However, the god frogs were OP as fuck, and they smashed the salty sausages, taking most of their empire from them but not extinguishing their race entirely, because they were considered to be a very low threat. As the salty sausages were brooding and probably getting ready to nuke themselves, they encountered some big-ass space jellyfish that ate suns and were like low-key gods of the material realm. The sausages created living metal bodies for these jellyfish to inhabit, and in doing so gave them consciousness and sentience. This is how the C'tan were created, and the C'tan were massive assholes. The first thing they noticed once they gained sentience is that suns taste like burnt asshole, but souls were like cotton candy. So they promised the sausages that they could fix their sunscreen issues, not by giving them sunscreen, but by making it so they didn't need sunscreen anymore. After some, but not a whole lot, of debate, the sausages agreed, stepping into toasters which fed their souls to the C'tan, but gave them these advanced metallic bodies. The entire race was also stripped of their free will except for the Silent King, who was given total dominative control over his entire race. Free of their salty forms, the newly created immortal Necrons alongside their star god C'tan were finally able to turn the tide of the war, killing and exiling the god frogs one by one and smashing their armies. With total domination theirs, the C'tan got bored and were low-key tricked into turning on each other, hence the Star Gods began to prey upon their own kind. During all of this, the Silent King came to regret sacrificing the souls of his entire race and damning them to slavery. Fair enough. Hence, when the C'tan were at their most vulnerable, he directed the Necron legions against them, shattering each of the C'tan into shards that they could then use as batteries, like the cute one in Eternal Agony on his dais. Fun fact, Szarekh actually defeated one of the C'tan personally. Dude is a fucking beast. However, curb stomping your own god's tits is hard work, hence the Necron Empire was smashed and wounded. At a similar time, the Eldar were on the rise, and the Silent King recognized that they would probably lose to them this time round, hence he ordered the entire Necron race to sleep for 50 million years, giving the Eldar Empire time to rise and fall, at which point the Necrons could return to claim what was rightfully theirs. The Silent King's final act before the galactic coma was to remove his command override, giving his people their free will back. Well, kind of, giving the top 1% of Necrons their free will, whilst the other 99% remained as low-key lobotomized slaves. There would be no slumber for Szarekh, however. Dude felt like shit for turbo-raping the galaxy with his bad decisions, and he went off for 60 million years to try find a solution. But before we talk about his vague but cool vacation, let's take a step back. Why was he called the Silent King, and how did his royalty actually work? The Necrons, and indeed their salty sausage precursors, which were called the Necron tier, were split into dynasties that were all under the command of the Triarch, a ruling council of 3 Necrons. The Silent King was called such as he never spoke to anyone except his fellow Triarch members, who would then tell the rest of the Necrons his will. It was a pretty flawed system and it didn't make much sense, but the nickname Silent King is fucking badass, so I'll allow it. When the Necrons were flesh and blood and died all the time, the dynasties were able to elect the new Silent King from any of the other dynasties, so the balance of power was always moving around. However, since Szarekh and his people became Necrons, he has become the permanent Lord of the Necrons. Well, in title anyways. More on that in a bit. The Silent King travelled all around the galaxy and even outside the Milky Way during his 60 million years of exile. He was quite melancholic, able to do what no other Necron had done, get over his own pride, ego, and accept responsibility for his failures. He resolved to fix them, believing he could potentially take biomass from other sources and use it to create living bodies. Then after that, he could transfer the Necron consciousnesses into them, more or less bringing the Necron race back to life. I don't know what they would do about their lack of soul situation, however the vast majority of Necrons are keen to return to flesh and blood, even though it means giving up their godlike immortality status. During his vacay, the Silent King also encountered and fought a fuckload of Tyranids outside of the Milky Way. He realized that if the Tyranids were able to consume the Milky Way's biomass, then his dream of returning to flesh would be impossible. Hence he declared them as his nemesis, and he returned to the Milky Way to prepare for their oncoming hordes. At first he was stealthy, subtly influencing Necron dynasties in his own disguises to make them keen for a return to flesh and blood, also attempting to unite them. Eventually he made his return official, uniting his own dynasty and regaining the loyalty of numerous others. However, with the Necrons gaining their free will, many others have resisted his call for unity. Others prefer their Necron state over flesh and blood, whilst others are salty that he fucked over their entire race and enslaved them. Fair enough. However, little by little, he is becoming more and more powerful. Orokin the Diviner, one of the Necron's greatest, is his advisor, whilst even Trazyn has popped his head in to say g'day. He also has the loyalty of the Triarch Praetorians, who are like the moderators of the Necron Empire and have a shitload of authority. Overall, he's actually a pretty swell dude, an honourable warrior who won't use his insta-win super weapons on you as long as you fight with honour yourself. He'll even let you live if you are worthy enough. In a piece of controversial lore, he once teamed up with the Blood Angels by wearing a peaceful death mask of Sanguinius in order to take on a greater Tyranid enemy. As his honour dictates, he then departed peacefully and without incident. I actually don't mind this lore. The Tyranids were the greater threat and he is honourable. Obviously he would attempt to team up with the Blood Angels in this situation. In recent times, after the birth of the Great Rift, the Silent King has taken matters into his own hands. He activated a protocol which accelerated the construction of anti-warp Necron pylons, which had been creating null pariah zones across the galaxy. His plan is to link these null zones together, creating a galaxy-spanning null zone which would defeat chaos, fuck with the Tyranids, and more or less remove the warp from play. Now this sounds like a good thing until you realize it also strips your soul from your body. See, humans and Eldar need a little bit of warp to survive. enough for their souls to exist and thrive. Chaos is the other end of the spectrum, too much warp, so the Mortal Order factions are really aiming for that middle ground. Either extreme would spell their extinction. As such, the Imperium has begun invading the greatest of these null zones, the domain of the Silent King, which is called the Pariah Nexus. It cannot allow the Nexus to expand, just as it cannot allow the Great Rift to expand. After all, even if the Silent King is a swell dude, he is still a Necron and doesn't give a fuck about the souls of the other races. The Imperial forces have been able to push into the Nexus, taking over a few worlds. However, they can't really do shit against the Silent King, at least not without help. They were able to send a message to Guilliman for aid, so it seems like a showdown between the Lord of Ultramar and the Silent King is on the horizon, which I'm super fucking keen for. I predict that the Silent King will outmatch and beat Guilliman at the cost of Guilliman sabotaging the Pariah Nexus. Guilliman will be at the Silent King's mercy, who will let him live, as he sees him as an honourable rival as well as an important tool against Chaos and the Nids. That is my prediction. If it is right, you guys have to, buy my merch or some shit, and if I'm wrong, then I'll hire someone to cock and ball torture me. Seems like a fair deal. I do need to quickly address the elephant in the room. I said the Silent King is one of, if not the most powerful being in the galaxy, and I have provided some evidence, but I'll really lay it out. The dude is a Necron dialed up to 11. His living metal instantly regenerates from any wound. His DS provides him with obscene firepower and defenses. I mean, it's got a Catan shard battery after all, the kind of battery which lesser Necrons would use to power entire worlds. He struck and shattered the Burning One, a legendary Catan, a feat which no one in the setting has been able to do other than Cain, the Eldar god of war. Even the Emperor's defeat of the Void Dragon isn't as impressive when you discover that that was just a shard of the Void Dragon. A big shard, but a shard nonetheless. Above all though, his power comes from his tools at his disposal. The tools that allow him to unite the most powerful empire the universe has ever seen. Tools which allow him to have a moon-sized battle barge. Tools which allow him to permanently kill the warp. An act that would not only kill the Chaos Gods, but also the Emperor. The Silent King is powerful as fuck, the most powerful individual in the setting. Above all though, the Silent King represents a solution to the Necron's main problem, their internal division. If you read any Necron book, you'll know that they are so much more powerful and advanced than all the other races. However, they waste it with petty infighting, lack of ambition, and pride. However, as they become more unified, they get way more powerful. In only a few short years of his return, the Silent King is already putting a plan in motion that would defeat the entire galaxy and bring it under his heel. Compare that to Chaos, who took 10,000 years to break Cadia, or the Tyranids, who have been invading the Milky Way for centuries, and you'll see just how powerful this guy is. I, for one, am glad to finally see a genuine threat that isn't Chaos, and I'm hoping this is one of the first steps of many to bring the Xeno factions back to the forefront where they belong. Now all GW has to do is make Gazkala Krork, wake up your Ned, and bring back the Lion, and the setting will become the mother of all Royal Rumbles. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up a Major Mini, 100 King Orcs guys and gal. You do not want to miss out on this one. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more silent content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.